In 2016, Red Hook Studios released their first game, Darkest Dungeon. Since then, it's been ported to just about every platform, has added new content and DLC throughout its lifespan, and has been a wild success for the indie gaming space. Now, after spending 2 years in early access, the sequel to the original Kickstarter game is officially out and ready to be explored. Does Darkest Dungeon 2 live up to the legacy of Red Hook Studios' first game?
Greater threats await those who dare.
Or has this dungeon fallen into oblivion?
Learn from each attempt. Deepen your understanding, and victory will come.
Find out in our review. Hey folks, if you enjoyed this video review, be sure to hit that like, subscribe, notification button. It's 3 small clicks for you, but means the world to us. Let's get started. I've spent a good amount of time across multiple consoles, venturing into the depths of the first Darkest Dungeon. I've spent hundreds of hours exploring, leveling, and dying to cultist monstrosities. So when the second title was announced, I was absolutely ecstatic to get my hands on it. Playing the game in early access, I was impressed, but still, I wanted to experience it at length with its true vision and design completed. And I'm happy to say that all the themes, art, and most of the design has been carried over into Darkest Dungeon 2. You still venture forth with a party of heroes. You still battle unforeseen horrors, manage stress, and make those crucial decisions that can easily turn bad. However, the game is now in full 3D, rather than its 2D counterpart. This is not a bad thing by any means. The beautiful art design is still there, with incredible looking environments, amazing enemy models, and fantastic yet simple animations that bring both enemies and the heroes to life. Instead of venturing into the dark depths of dungeons, you and your crew take a hazardous road trip across plague-ridden lands. You venture off by choosing 4 heroes at the start of the game, each with their own unique abilities and roles. You travel via horse-driven wagon via different routes. Each route acts as its own dungeon, with different paths to take, enemies, bosses, and hazards along the way, with the goal of reaching the inn at the end of the run. Returning Darkest Dungeon players will notice there's a lot more to be managed during a run. While you still have to keep an eye on stress and health, Darkest Dungeon 2 has several other systems you'll have to keep an eye on. At the forefront is the new relationship system, not to be confused with stress. Your heroes will talk and work with each other, contributing points, positive or negative, to their relationship status. Making decisions affects each hero's relationship differently, and maxing out positive relationships have good effects and bonuses, while the opposite, of course, has bad effects. Like Envious, for example, a status that when acquired will have heroes gain stress when that hero uses a certain ability for that run.
Resentment, the slowest and deadliest poison of them all.
Loathing is also something that players will have to keep an eye on. It shows up randomly on routes as you travel through the map. Gain too much, and enemies will have a huge advantage in combat. The only way to remove loathing is by completing certain battles. The wagon itself also has durability, and will lose it via ambushes or while traveling through rough patches of road. Again, lose too much and you'll be forced to battle with a man down, as somebody has to repair the wagon. Once you reach the inn, you gain respite, a chance to heal, remove stress, and apply buffs to heroes before choosing your next dungeon, route to take. Battling in Darkest Dungeon 2 is as good as it's ever been. Each hero has a unique role and position to where they are most effective. Planning out a turn and setting up combos feels great and rewarding, but the biggest change is how clear everything is to the player. You know when your enemy has a buff or might miss an attack, thanks to the helpful mouse over tooltips. Status effects, buffs, and debuffs on enemies are very easy to understand, which is good because there are a lot of status conditions and abilities. The game does a great job at explaining everything you need to understand to fight and survive. It even alerts you when you encounter a new mechanic or place you've never seen before and explains it thoroughly.
What can we learn upon closer inspection?
One of the things Darkest Dungeon 1 fans will miss, me especially, is the lack of an in-game economy. While you do get money in the form of relics and baubles you can use to purchase items from vendors, you can't sell anything to make some quick cash. Instead, Darkest Dungeon 2's currency comes in the form of candles that you acquire after completing a run or meeting some sort of requirement, like killing an enemy with a certain attack, or visiting a specific location. These candles are your primary way to permanently upgrade hero stats, unlock new characters, items, upgrade your wagon, and much more. They're the thing you'll chase that makes your party gear resources more powerful or plentiful. The farther you get, the more candles are rewarded, which serves as the main motivation to press on.
Remain undeterred, and you will yet prevail.
There's also a brand new location called the Shrines of Reflection. You'll encounter these randomly during your routes, and they tell a compelling story about one of your heroes. Sometimes it'll be a dramatic reading of events by the original narrator from the first game, who absolutely knocked it out of the park in the sequel. Even if no animatic or cutscene is shown, you still feel the weight of each word as he paints a picture of the life of the grave robber or highwayman.
She was the object of her husband's boorish lust and drunken temper, placating his worst tendencies with a veneer of gracious deference.
Sometimes these shrines will put you into a battle, but it's more of a puzzle battle. Simply hitting it until it dies isn't the goal here, but rather finding out what you need to do to be successful. And some of these are hard, but very fun to experience. If you beat the battle, you're rewarded with a new ability for that hero that permanently unlocks. But what happens to your heroes if they fall?
She listened, smirking, as his empty apologies came in desperate, choking gags.
Death was a big deal in the first Darkest Dungeon. Going in half-cocked without the proper heroes or items would set you back tremendously, and added a sense of terror and dread for those heroes you've built up. And it's probably Darkest Dungeon 1's biggest feature, and its sequel's biggest flaw.
Nothing can survive such a wholesale, organic failure.
Gone are hero levels, armor, and weapon upgrades. Instead, you're rewarded mastery points for defeating enemies in battle that you can use at the end to upgrade an ability. And this was kind of a letdown for me, as each ability can only be upgraded once. That's it. If your party is wiped out, you start over and are able to select the same heroes again, with all abilities previously unlocked. Sometimes you will lose candles, but since there's no currency system to manage really, you lose nothing but time. I can guess this was an attempt to make the game less punishing if you do get RNG to death, but dying in Darkest Dungeon 2 is pretty meaningless when compared to the first game. Spending gold on trinkets and upgrades and bonding with certain heroes became that much more of an investment when you entered a dungeon. Losing your favorite hero was a devastating blow and would set you back hours, making each high-level dungeon run in the first game stressful and anxious, but in a good way. In Darkest Dungeon 2, death is pretty much nothing more than a slight inconvenience, with so little consequence, which is a tad disappointing.
The past is gone. Let it die.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the sound design, which is absolutely incredible. I found myself turning off the in-game music to enjoy the stellar sound effects, whether it be the sound of steel scraping against stone, the twirl of a knife through the air, God, I love that, or the plague doctor rummaging through her bag to look for potions. Sound isn't often mentioned in game reviews, but here it's definitely a standout, and Power Up Audio should be given every award imaginable for their absolutely outstanding work in Darkest Dungeon 2.
The smallest variable can make all the difference.
Darkest Dungeon 2 innovates at every turn, from its art design, mechanics, sound, story, and more. There's a lot to dig into this game, and although death doesn't seem to be as brutal and the lack of an in-game economy isn't there, it's still an addictive game loop that will keep you coming back for more RNG punishment. Hey folks, if you enjoyed this video review, be sure to hit that like, subscribe, notification button. It's 3 small clicks for you, but means the world to us. For more video reviews and everything else gaming related, you're already in the right place. You're on Shacknews.com.